I'll be looking at some of the content from this issue of C3i. It's issue number 25. And as shown on the cover, the lead article is on the game Labyrinth. So Labyrinth, if you're not familiar, is a card-driven Twilight struggle style game that's on the War on Terror from 2001 onwards. So this is a copy of the game. And there's some extensive coverage in here. The lead article is by the developer Joel Toppin, and so there's a picture of the map of the game, and he basically goes through some of the issues in designing this game that they faced, but more importantly, there's a subheading in here called Developers Tips for New Players. So there are a number of game tips. I count 7 game tips here, and some of them involve different concepts in the game. And then you get a picture of Joel Toppin right there, who was the developer. So that's basically page 5 through 7 is that. Then there is another very interesting article, Using Labyrinth in the Classroom, Political Military Games for Training and Education. So that's something that's always interested me. When I homeschooled my grandkids in the grade school level, I definitely use simulations in history to help them understand things and become more interested. So your mileage may vary on that, but this is a kind of a cool article talking about how to adapt Labyrinth in the classroom. Then there's an article on just a gamer. I don't know if he's random or not, Jeremy Antley. So a scenario for SPQR. There's some scenarios provided in here. Plus there's a card that goes with it and a few counters, I think. Actually, there are no counters in this game for that. So you have to use the counters out of SPQR. It's a Punic War scenario. So you can enjoy that if you're into the great battles of history. There's a game in this magazine called Battle for Moscow. This is a Frank Chadwick game. I believe he's from the GDW company. So you've got the counters for that game on here. And then the rules booklet is basically 4 pages. So it's, not a complex game. Your turn, chart, and terrain effects. And this is the map. So I'm not sure what the scale is on this, but it looks like it's fairly high. The units are corps for the Germans and armies for the Soviets. So get a little bit of a game in here, and there's a 1-page article of design notes for the game as well. Then there's some coverage of Flying Colors. This is an article about Serpents of the Seas and the series in general. I don't have all of it, but I do have Flying Colors, and I have White Cross Blue Ensign, I think, and I have Ship of the Line, I think. But I don't have Serpents of the Seas. So there's quite an article about this, talking about some of the concepts as well as some scenarios for that game. And then here is an overview article also of Serpents of the Seas. So there's quite a bit of coverage for the Flying Color series in here. Then you have Cleo's Corner number 2. This is an excellent series that I like from Mark Herman, where he gives some insights on the game. And the theme of this little article is to script or not to script. That is the question. And he zeroes in on the design challenges involved in producing these card-driven games and how much scripting are you going to have. So he talks about Paths of Glory, Mark Simonich's game Hannibal. He mentions We the People, Wilderness War, Unhappy King Charles, For the People, Washington's War, Empire of the Sun, and Shifting Sands, Mike Ranella game. So he talks about some of the issues involved in the idea of scripting. There's also an article here on Japan, New Guinea, and the Solomons in Empire of the Sun openings. So if you play Empire of the Sun, there's a lot of discussion in here regarding Empire of the Sun's opening moves in those areas, Japan, New Guinea, and the Solomons. So you'll find this article kind of an important one if you're trying to develop your game a little bit better. There's also an article here, a one-pager called Retrospective by Mark Herman, also covering Empire of the Sun. And then a big chunk of the rest of this magazine is the founding years. This is an article about Charles Roberts. So I forget who wrote this article, but it says it was written in 1983, so it has been reproduced here in C3i number 25, which has quite an article in it. Then we have an article, Lest We Forget, and this has a number of blurbs, little short essays written called Personal Tributes to the Memory of Charles Roberts. So it's led off by Jack Green. There's a commentary by Dana Lombardi, Jim Werbineth, Omar DeWitt, Jason Matthews, Mark Gwinnett, Frederick Bay, Michael Limick, Kevin Zucker, Kenneth Fonarow, Volko Runke, Eric Young. They all had something to say about Charles Roberts, and how they were inspired by him. And then finally, we have an interview from 1988 that's been reproduced with Charles Roberts. I'm not sure who interviewed him. It seems like it was Fire and Movement magazine, though, is what it looks like. John Venor, if I'm pronouncing his name right. So there's a lot of coverage if you're interested in the history of wargaming and Charles Roberts' influence on it and how people in the hobby feel about him in retrospect and in tribute. And then finally, we have an article in here, Clash of Giants. This is Volume 1, Tannenberg, Breaking the Code. So this was written by Mark Still. For some reason, I feel Mark Still is the designer of Red Sun and Red Star. That's the it's the Nominhan campaign in S&T 158. But I feel like it was Mark Still was the designer of that. But I might be making that up. Sometimes that happens. This game was designed, though, by Ted Racer. And I've played I've actually had Clash of Giants and Clash of Giants 2. And I've played them, and I found them okay. I ended up selling them quite a few years ago. So, but this article gives you some coverage of Tannenberg in particular out of Volume 1. And there's a 2-page article on that. And then you have a War Game Designer's History of World War I by Ted Racer. And this is a little short article on his book, Crowns in the Gutter. So, and then there's a very short article in the back on Combat Commander, Deeper into the Jungle. And it's about a battle pack that covers the Pacific and New Guinea in particular, with some scenarios. So that's pretty much what you get. There's a 1-page of Commands and Colors Ancients coverage, and then a 1-page designer notes on the Victory Point game, We Must Tell the Emperor. So there you have it. That's a fairly detailed look at what you get in C3i number 25. Really valuable for Labyrinth if you're a player of that game. So I thank you for watching. Stay tuned for further magazine coverage on this channel, and I hope you have a great day.